Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you. Thank you so much for attending the 8 steps to successfully integrating VR, XR, and AR into your CRM efforts. My name is Barton Goldenberg, but before I introduce myself or anything else, I want to immediately go into a poll to learn a little bit more about the audience that's participating in this event. And the question that's being asked of you, and I'm going to put the poll up on the screen, is, do you know if your company currently conducts business in the metaverse? And you should be able to click on a yes, no, or a don't know, and that'll give us some indication of who's on the call.
Barton,
so let me launch it. I'm going to launch the poll.
Right.
You should be able to now, you should be able to give me a yes, no, or here we go. Good. So is your company, to the best of your knowledge, currently conducting business in the metaverse? Okay, so this is interesting. Okay, it's stabilized. So let me show it to you. I'm going to close it and show it to you. So as you can see, about 17% of you on the call, which is really good, is belonging to a company that's currently conducting business in the metaverse. 67% are belonging to a company that, to the best of knowledge, is not doing business in the metaverse right now, and 17% don't know. So this is a wonderful mix, and we're delighted to have you. It's kind of what I hoped for. So thank you so much. Okay, so let's go and continue with some bold forecasts that recently come out. And today we're not here to...
I'm not seeing the slides at all.
So today we're here to talk a little bit about what we call the metaverse, also referred to as the virtual world, also referred to as AR, VR, XR. And we're going to talk about this, what's happening in an industry that is rather fluid. But for now, just bear with us as we throw out some of these names. And I'm going to talk some bold facts because some of them are rather astounding. In the next 5 years, 70% of all brands will have a presence on the metaverse. Direct to Avatar, or also known as D2A, is a new interaction platform that's been created to facilitate the metaverse. And here's one that'll cause some discussion at your dinner table tonight. By 2030, it's estimated that the average adult will spend as much time in the metaverse as they are in the real world. Now, the job is not to agree or disagree with these. It's simply to tell you that this is where the industry is thinking. I go a little bit further. If you look at the some other forecasts, worldwide spending is supposed to increase tenfold from about 12 billion in 2020 to 1.5 trillion in 2030. Largest VR, AR, which are 2 types of metaverse applications, include or focus on what we're here to talk about today: sales, marketing, and customer service. There's also a robust effort using metaverse technologies behind education and training, as well as field service, remote collaboration. We'll touch that a little bit. But the biggest question I pose to you, and I pose to myself all the time, is why should you care about this metaverse, this emerging metaverse? And it's a fair question to ask yourself and to demand a good answer. Here's an attempt at my answer. So there's 2 pieces to this. There's the business impact and there's the personal impact. From the business impact, I would suggest that the metaverse can indeed improve the way your company sells, markets, and services to its customers. And we're going to show you some demos of how companies are doing that today. Another very important one is the competitiveness of your company. By positioning yourself in the metaverse, it allows you to do business where your either existing or emerging customers want to do business. It allows you to engage them in the ways that they prefer to be engaged. And that will help secure, for example, sales and happier customers. And lastly, from a business perspective, metaverse technologies will drive down customer and field service costs. It'll provide a more comprehensive solution to customer problems, and you're going to see a video on how that's actually done in the market today. But I think the personal impact is as important as the business impact. And from a personal perspective, it would be my observation, if you are a sales, a marketing, a customer service executive, this provides you entirely new opportunity to be a pioneer in the use of metaverse technology. And you don't get that all the time, to become a pioneer in the use of a new technology. It also provides you to raise the bar in terms of technology at your company and be known for that. And not as a side effect, but also very important, it helps you as an employee or as an entrepreneur or as a whatever candidate, makes you more attractive and competitive to companies looking to hire forward-thinking personnel. So it would be my observation that both business and personal impacts are some very good reasons why you should care about this emerging technology and about this emerging trend called the metaverse. All by way of saying, this is Bart Goldenberg. I'm delighted to have you here. I founded ISM back in 1985. I've written quite a bit on CRM as that moved, from a nothing industry to a rather important industry. And as the industry has moved, so has the customer expectations. And that's why I and others have moved from kind of a core CRM to a capability using digital tools and techniques to now what is really a very important trend called the metaverse. And all of these impact customer engagement, customer experience, etc. Joining me is my distinguished, so ISM, for those that don't know it, many of you on the call, by the way, I welcome you because I saw who was on the list, are friends of mine. But since 1985, we've been helping global best-in-class companies to improve their business processes and ready their companies to adopt new technologies to achieve excellence in sales, marketing, and customer service. So that's the core value or mission of the company. And we've had the pleasure of doing it for lots and lots of very important and great companies. And we're deeply honored that they have selected us as their trusted advisors. On the call is a more important person than me, and that's my distinguished colleague, Tim Bajarin. And Tim, I'll ask you to just take a minute and introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, I'm Tim Bajarin. I'm chairman of Creative Strategies. We're one of the oldest high-tech research companies here in Silicon Valley. I've been covering the tech sector for almost 40 years and have been at the forefront of predicting a lot of the trends over the years, including desktop publishing, helping customers create mobile roadmaps. And I've done a lot of work in the last 10 years on the early stages of VR, XR, and also called MR and AR strategies for IT. Being in the forefront of research really helps me get an idea of how things are going to develop. And we literally have been at the center of that, helping companies understand things from the beginning so that they're ready for whatever the market demands in the near term as well as the future.
Yeah, so what I'd like to just say, Tim and I have known each other for several decades, but this is a real pro, top of his game, tremendously well respected, and we're going to learn something from Tim today, including myself. By the way, if you wanted to tweet during this particular session, we'd encourage you to do so, hashtag Metaverse 2022. But let me turn it back to Tim. And Tim, the question I have to ask you is, we talked a little bit at the beginning about fluidity, about some technologies called augmented reality, or virtual reality, or mixed reality, or extended reality. We've talked about different visions. The question is, what in the heck is the metaverse? And I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, that is a big question. But if you try to understand a little bit of kind of the history of the internet and what's going on, the bottom line is the internet is moving towards a new phase in which information can be delivered in a virtual world. Web 1.0, which was introduced in early 90s, was basically read-only. You could only log on and get information. You could not do anything with it other than potentially download it to a printer. Web 2.0 made the internet interactive, and that came about in 1995-96 when the web browser came into reality. And from that point on, it began to build on the whole idea of a live interactive internet experience where we could not only see the data, we could interact with the data, and that's really important. The next phase of the internet is going to be what we call Web 3.0, and it will serve as the foundation or creating new types of internet experience that includes viewing them in a virtual world on current devices through VR, MR, and AR headsets. And I'm looking at some technologies now that especially can be accelerated on the desktop and laptop and even a smartphone, where you can have more AR type experiences. Apple's already shown that through the iPad and the iPhone, using apps from their AR kit architecture. And the Android phones and Android OS is doing something similar. But I believe that even PCs at some point will have the ability to have 3D level functionality, maybe another 5 to 7 years out. But I think that the PC itself can evolve to becoming a vehicle for delivering quote unquote metaverse content. The next slide. But let's be really clear on something. Even though this term is being flushed around, it is a work in progress. We believe it will revolutionize the world of information and will be at the heart of the next phase of the internet. Simply put, it will allow people to learn, work, and play in new dimensions of information delivery that include 3D, virtual interaction in immersive environments, and make the internet multidimensional. Now, I come from the tech side. My customers have been all the tech companies, the semiconductor companies, the computer makers, the guys that create the smartphones. And I've not seen them as excited about a new phase since the early days of the web. The web itself and interactive technology really expanded the internet's functions beyond what it was in the early days to where it could be an actual business tool. And we believe that everything is driving in the direction that, even though metaverse and its definition is fluid, as Barton said, and we're in this early phase, it will be a major and have a major impact on not only the world of technology, but I believe the entire business process. And that's why we're here today, to share with you some of the early thoughts we've been researching and looking at to develop what in essence is somewhat of a strategy to start thinking about this.
Tim, let me ask you a question. Metaverse. Meta decides to invest 10 billion to focus on the metaverse. Apple has goggles coming out in 2024. Should we be, I've kind of focused in my writing, and I see a little bit on yours too, on using the metaverse just because it's a term that people kind of can relate to. As you put in, XR, VR, AR, or MR, they're kind of like, they think it's more of a techie term. But virtual world is another good way to look at it. Is it okay to use metaverse?
Well, it is partially because it's a buzzword, and I think everybody's already got it in their mental vocabulary. However, if you actually see the word metaverse and immediately think about virtual world. So, for example, if you have ever played any of the games from Xbox or any of the other types of console games or even PC games, you already are in a virtual world. You're shooting people in a virtual world, or you're traveling in a virtual world. However, all of that today has been mostly 2D. When you put on now the new goggles that say Meta has, the Quest goggles and the HoloLens goggles, etc., that now elevates the experience to a 3D immersive world. And that's what we're starting to move towards. Not a 2D virtual world, but a 3D virtual world. And that's where it will evolve. Now, again, it's still in its infancy, it's still fluid, but as we have been studying this I have especially for over 10 years, and we're going to give you examples of companies that are already doing this, I think it's really imperative that individual companies now, no matter where they are in their business processes, need to, one, start thinking about it. And I wrote a piece for Forbes recently where I point out that you really need to probably have a a principal investigator whose role is to try to figure out how you as a company or your company can participate in the metaverse over the next few years.
Great. And if you wanted to learn more of what Tim is saying, because he's a wealth of knowledge, I would encourage you to visit something Tim and I set up on the ISM website called the Metaverse Resource Center. And there you have all of Tim's articles, any videos he's done, any blogs he's written on this topic. Similarly, my videos, my blogs, my articles. But most importantly, you have a little over, I think it's, well, I know it's well over 100 use cases. So actual use cases by industry. So if you want to just look by sales and marketing, you can go and look at the use case in sales and marketing, or in customer service, or in field service, or in training. Or if you really are within an industry and you're in the manufacturing industry, you can click on the manufacturing icon in the resource center, and then up come only the use cases that are relevant to manufacturing or biotech or pharma. You'll see the different categories. So it's a resource that Tim and I use to hopefully disseminate not only our writings and videos and so forth, but we bring in third-party opinions, different pieces, and most importantly, we continue to add to the use cases, which is a wealth of knowledge as you begin to better understand how you can apply metaverse technologies to your current situation. So thank you, Tim. We'll come back to you in just a moment, but I wanted to get in our second poll. We've kind of started to talk a little bit about the metaverse. And so what I'd like to do, if with your permission right now, is I'd like to launch next poll. And that is a question of whether your company should investigate your role in the metaverse. Is this the time to really begin to investigate? Tim talked a little bit about the principal investigator. What about, is this the time to really start to investigate your role in the metaverse? I'd be interested in that. Okay, so that's stabilized. These always go up, but let me share it with you. So 83% of you said, yeah, it really is the time to investigate our role. Nobody said no, which makes sense, and the 15% don't know. But look, those are really good numbers, and I just want to say thank you for attending this webinar, because you're the right people to be participating here. So again, just thank you for again participating. Okay. Let's go into the core of what we kind of framed up the webinar. And, I initially called it, when we wrote it before with a fluidity, threw it more towards the metaverse. It was called how to successfully integrate VR, XR, and AR into your CRM efforts. So metaverse is kind of the Tim talked about it, a buzz term. CRM efforts, what do I mean by that? Well, that's sales, marketing, and customer service. Okay, there's some other pieces to it, but really it's hardcore sales, marketing, customer service. And here's a methodology I'd like to share with you, an 8-step methodology, which we've used over the years in lots of different technological advancements. It's tweaked for the metaverse because of some nuances in the metaverse, but this has been around, at least we've been practicing it for 30 plus years, and it works very well. So I encourage you to think about it and so forth. So let's go right into the steps, and there'll be a couple of videos that Tim talked about and I talked about. So the first thing is the executive team, the need and the importance of gaining support from the executives, who ultimately will be the decision makers. They'll be the folks that will drive the strategy, drive the implementation. And you have to remember, this is kind of new to them. Now, not maybe all of them, but many of them. So typically, there's a heavy educational component to preparing your metaverse executive vision. And it's very important that you take the time in an executive way to talk about the metaverse, so that when they get to a vision, they can kind of own it. I'm not saying they're going to tattoo it on their body, but at least they own it. And I also suggest one of the things that we use that we find effective is some type of facilitated executive briefing. This is not selling anything that we do, but we do one, and it's called How to Do Business in the Metaverse. And what we do typically, and again, you can do this yourself if you feel well versed, or you can bring in a company like mine or anybody else's or ours. So we talk about what is the metaverse and why is it important to business, right? So kind of we spend an hour, 45 minutes, something like that, kind of going through that. Then we go into the hardcore of how are companies in your and related industries actually either doing or using metaverse technology or planning to use metaverse technology to to work in the metaverse. And there we talk about many different companies. And I think that's an important component of the overall briefing. And it kind of drives it home, and they can relate to it, and they feel, that it's about them, if you will. And then what we typically like to do at the end of the executive briefing, how to do business in the metaverse, is to create a vision with them. It's not like profound, but a vision and an action plan in terms of what do you have to do next to help really facilitate the entry into the metaverse. And when we look at vision, and we'll see this a little later on, we look at plans, you're really planning 3 to 5 years out. But many companies are doing it right now for reasons that we already referred to positioning, et cetera. You really got to be there and put your stakes down. But again, let's build the case. Second step. Oh, sorry. Anything that you want to say on preparing metaverse executive vision and dealing with the executives?
No, I just think that whole issue of education is really important up front right now.
Yeah. Good. Okay. So step number 2. This one's going to be a little longer than the other steps. Not that it's any more important, but just that we're going to give you some examples right now. So the second piece is to determine the burning business issues that your company faces vis-a-vis its or with its customers. So what is the burning business issues where you sit back and you say, geez, I wish we could do this better, it would really help us sell more, service better, market more effectively. I call those burning business issues, okay? So I'm going to give you some examples, then I'm going to show you some videos. So on the sales side, for example, could we facilitate virtual visits by prospects to our global facilities? I've got a customer in the blueberry industry that'd love to take people from different parts of the world and show them how blueberry bushes grow in similar countries in other parts of the world. So there's low chill and high chill and different ways to grow blueberries. And rather than having people to travel from one country to the next around the world, and you really have some heavy travel, if we could use the whole metaverse to invite them to put on the goggles and visit the fields or visit the growing, the various facilities, then it's just a wonderful way for the customer to be engaged. I can't show you that video just now, but to touch the plants, to shake them, to see how the plants are set up, spaced apart, and see how the greenhouse is set up. It's just a very nice way. So that's the sales side. On the marketing side, that's really the ability to demonstrate your company's use of the metaverse technology in products and services. I'm going to show you Lockheed Martin, how they do that in just a minute. But that's very exciting as well, because what they're doing is they're positioning themselves or separating themselves from the competition by showing potential customers how they built in metaverse to help them do a better job in this case on the spacecrafts. And the last one, there's customer service there. It talks a little bit more about what's referred to as remote assist, but really providing remote diagnostic and repair while minimizing travel costs and dependence on skilled technicians to be physically on site. And again, I'll show you an example of the Microsoft offering and how they do remote assist or remote. And that's just the concept that you've got your glasses on or your goggles, and you are, on your left side of your goggle, you might have the ability to look up a user manual, and on the right side, you might have a camera, and it's connected back to a subject matter expert, wherever that subject matter expert may be, and together you work on and diagnose and repair the problem. But let's go to the video clips. And I'm hoping this is all going to work, because GoToWebinar changed their format a month ago, but I think I got it working. We'll give it a go. So the first one I want to talk about is on the sales side, and I'm just going to refer to a couple of retailers, but again, it's not just about the retail. So look at some of these. Remember we talked earlier on about the next 5 years, 70% of the brands will have a presence in the metaverse. So look at some of these figures. I'll read them to you. They're not easy to read, but 40% of customers would be willing to pay more for a product if they could experience it through augmented reality. 61% of shoppers prefer to shop at stores that offer augmented reality over ones that don't. 71% of shoppers would shop in a retailer more often if they offered augmented reality. So, I mean, that's some pretty wild numbers, but let's go to the video clip. Let's make sure I do this well. It's a very short clip. Warby Parker, a couple of Wharton guys that got together, graduated an MBA, opened what is a very profitable eyewear company, and all of you that are using it probably love it just like many of us do. So let's go to the video clip and let's try on a pair of glasses together with Warby Parker.
I love this Warby Parker virtual try-on app.
This looks so realistic.
This is so fun that you can try on the glasses.
I feel like they're actually on me. Wow.
It's like I actually have them on my face.
I'm obsessed.
Okay, so that's an example of one example of how we're building in this case, AR directly into the sales process to help sell. Let's go to the next example, which is more on the marketing side. And like I said, I've already alluded to this. I'm going to bring up a Lockheed Martin video. It's a little longer than the other one, but it's still worth listening to, and the impact that the whole AR has helped and MR has helped in helping them to sell to various and market their effectiveness to various buyers. Let's go back to the videotape. And let's pull up Lockheed Martin and let's give it a go.
So imagine, you're crawling inside a spacecraft and you're trying to do the work. The last thing you need is to have to carry paper or tablets or laptops into the environment. Being able to have the data readily available without having to hold on to anything is significant. I'm Shelley Peterson. My role is Principal Investigator for Augmented and Mixed Reality at Lockheed Martin. We work with Orion, which is NASA's spacecraft that will take astronauts out to the moon and even into deeper space, such as Mars. On the Orion spacecraft, there's 57,000 fasteners. And normally the technicians would have to measure to know where to place those fasteners. With mixed reality, they put on the device, they see the digital version of the fastener hovering over the surface. They know exactly where to place it. When we do this, we save about 90% of the touch labor. We take an 8-hour activity of marking locations, and they finish it in 45 minutes. Or an 8-shift activity they can complete in 6 hours. It also reduces the potential for errors because the instruction is just so clear when they see it overlaid on the structure in front of them. Over the last 2+ years that we've used the HoloLens on the shop floor, we haven't had one error, and that's significant. It's just pretty powerful. It takes what we think of as a laptop or computing to the next level. Feels like magic.
Okay, so that's just a wonderful example, and you heard what her title was. She's Principal Investigator for AR and Mixed Reality. But when you bring tasks down from 8 hours to 45 minutes, these are significant advances. So that's on the marketing side, so that when they sell and market their services, people think they're really on top of their game. Let me bring it into the customer service side or customer support side. And for that, I'm going to show you some statistics and then give you another video. But here's the metaverse in terms of customer and also field service. But 17% decrease in technician dispatch with augmented reality remote assist, and you'll see that. And then on the kind of the customer service, center, increase in first call resolution, which is very often the metric that's used, of 20% with augmented reality remote assistance. So these are potentially impressive numbers. Let me take you to the videotape again, and this is where we're going to apply augmented reality to field service or customer service in the field, and you'll see how it works. And it's very exciting. Okay, so let's go to the videotape. According to Wikipedia,
this is a new vision for work. Now employees can work smarter and bring in the people they need with just a tap. They can troubleshoot, repair, and perform with confidence and speed. They can move freely, pull critical information into view, and stay focused on the task. Their hands free to do the work. This is collaborative problem solving at full speed. Your people, united across time and distance, more connected, more informed, and more efficient. Now employees can work together from anywhere. they can go there without being there. This isn't the future. This is here and now.
Okay, so that ends the step number 2, where we talked about determine your burning business issues. And I gave some example, one of sales, marketing, customer service. Tim, anything you'd like to say about the need to focus on burning business issues before you kind of jump off the diving board and start to apply technology?
No, but I would say that one area we've been looking at for quite a while is the role of these glasses and goggles in field service. And the Microsoft one is one of the more interesting ones. But man, we've seen, and if you go to our Metaverse Resource Center, we've got multiple examples of how field service applications are being impacted, and it's the cost savings there. I mean, it's not just the things that are bringing you to leading edge technology. It's the fact that there's real cost savings involved when you implement these technologies properly.
Good. Okay, step 1, we've prepared an executive vision, educated the executives, they're on board, they've got it tattooed to their bodies, they're ready to roll forward. Step 2, we've identified the burning business issues that impact sales or marketing or customer service, and we're beginning to formulate some ideas of, could we use metaverse capabilities, technologies, otherwise, to help with addressing that issue. Now, for those of you that have followed me for years, you know that the whole company's been built on the people process technology paradigm. So it should come as no surprise in the 8-step methodology that we're now going to move into the people process technology steps, which I think are critical for any successful implementation of technology. So I say here now we're going to go into the process piece, because typically you might say, oh, we got a sales issue, we got a customer service, a field service, we got a marketing. So what you typically want to then do is to go back in and look at what's going on in that process. So I took an example of a sales process and how you might be able to integrate the metaverse technology into your product or service so that the customers can, for example, try on your product. So that's a process. How do I sell the trying on of products? And you saw the Warby Parker virtual try-on app. That's a very important part of their sales process, because people then are ready to buy. They see it on them and so forth. Or you could help, in another case for kind of selling as well, you could help a customer configure a whole new piece of machinery on the factory floor as a part of your sales process. So in other words, you and I'll show it to you in a minute, you could go in and use this metaverse tool, this Microsoft augmented reality tool, it's called the layout tool, and use it to actually help a customer visualize what that machine is going to look like on the factory floor, and you build that into your sales process. And I'll show that in a minute. And you've seen many of the companies are letting prospects come in with their virtual headsets or VR headsets to travel to a vacation. If you look at Virgin Holidays, just an example, you can travel to Mexico, you can travel to all kinds of places, and you really feel like you're right inside the holiday, inside the, what's going on. One of the things that we've learned with 36 to 37 years of experience is when you do this process work, which is critical, you want to perform insightful process mapping for the sales function, for the marketing function, for the customer service function, but you don't want to forget what's called end-to-end or E-to-E processes, because when you sell something, it then falls, once you've sold it, you have to service it. So you got to make sure that sales and service work together. And there's many different people that touch the customer, finance, and there's all kinds of things. So you want to look at processing for the process in question. Maybe it's a sales process, but how does that fit into the bigger picture end to end? And for many of our customers, we do the end-to-end process mapping because it helps them see how everything fits together, etc. But let's go back to that concept of helping customers configure a new piece of machinery on the factory floor. And I want to share with you now another video. This one is pretty cool, and I hope you'll like it as well. So let's take a peek at this one. I think we got the right video, and let's go.
With HoloLens, you can work with high-quality 3D holograms integrated into your space. With Microsoft Layout, you have the tools you need to design and review in context and find new solutions that give you confidence before you commit. transform your layout in moments with precision and speed.
So seriously, how cool is that? And just imagine that being a part of your sales process. You're differentiating yourself from all of your competitors because you can actually allow the customer to take the machine and virtually see it in their space and adjust it and so forth, and go back to you as the manufacturer to tweak it the way they need it. It's just a tremendous tool in the overall sales process. Okay, we've prepared the executive vision. We've identified burning sales, marketing, customer service issues, and we've said we start with the process piece to understand which processes can best benefit from some of the metaverse capabilities. I now want to move on to step number 4, and that is identifying metaverse technology. But Tim, let me stop for a minute. I'd like you to take 4, but is there anything you'd like to mention on the process side in terms of preparing, if you will, or recognizing the core business processes that metaverse can impact?
Well, it's kind of I think the real interesting word here is visualization, right? When you walk in, in that Microsoft example, they're giving you the ability to actually see an empty floor and then put the equipment on it and see exactly where it fits. So you're not guessing, even though you may have measurements and taking them down via tape measures, etc. This lets you visualize it. Apple's doing something with IKEA that's very similar for consumers, where you can go into an empty room, take the AR app that IKEA has, and drop bits of furniture or lamps or coffee tables into a room to see what it might look like. I mean, that just is early stage ideas, and it's going to get even more sophisticated, where we can get this down to the exact visualization of whatever you're thinking. You're creating it and putting it into your space, and it's from a planning purpose, that is a huge tool.
Yep, totally agree. Totally agree. Thank you, Tim, for that insight. So let's just talk now. Typically, what we'll do is we will have identified processes that come out of the burning business issues, and we'll then see, can technology impact the process? And I just want you to talk a minute about some of the how to go about identifying appropriate metaverse technology and what are the options, because I think and the opportunities, because I think a lot of people maybe don't do this on a day-to-day basis, whereas you do. Why don't you share with us your thoughts of how do you identify metaverse technology opportunities?
Well, there's 3 particular areas that you have to look at. One is the software. What are the tools that are being created to use the software? In one sense, I mentioned Web 3.0. That is still a spec that is in evolutionary design, although there are a lot of pieces that are in place. But you need to be looking at the evolution of Web 3.0 technologies and what are the various things that are being developed that can sit on top of that. Secondly, it's kind of an interesting thing, but when I mentioned about the virtual worlds early on, talking about gaming, where if you play world of various games, you're actually in a virtual world. And what's interesting about it is they are created on what are known as gaming engines: Unity, Roblox, Minecraft, etc. And it turns out that those gaming platforms are going to play a very important role at the center of developing next generation AR, VR, XR applications. Now, Apple's already got a great platform in place in AR Kit, but Apple's going to make that even broader and greater over time. Google already has things in that way. Meta, with their Meta Quest, are their Quest 2 headsets, and the architectural engines that they use. I mean, there are a lot of new software technologies that are being created to allow you to actually create the kind of applications you need. And you need to study and begin looking at that. That's one of the areas that we cover in our briefing. Secondly, you need to look at the hardware. The hardware side of this, ironically, has been around for quite a while. So you look at one major company who's been doing this in field service, Vuzix, has been actually creating headsets for over 10 years. And Microsoft introduced HoloLens almost 10 years ago. You've got Meta's Quest headset that has been recently introduced, and you've got multiple new ones that are in the pipeline, as well as Apple's, which we don't think will come out this year, but could come out as early as next year, and for sure by 2024. So you have to also look at the potential hardware solutions. And then you have to think about these based on your individual needs. How would you take these technologies and apply these to customer service, to sales, to field service, etc.? Because as I mentioned earlier, that you do have, I think, a need to have a Metaverse investigator who looks at it in the context of the entire company. But you really need to not look at creating a global Metaverse strategy off the beginning. I think you have to do this kind of in chunks. You would actually start at a project in field service or sales or marketing, and then investigate the hardware, the software, and the tools and the applications, one that already exist. And then if you have to create them as yourselves, you need to look at some of the gaming engines, some of the software engines that exist, whether it be ARKit toolkits, the Android toolkit for MR and XR, as well as the ones that are being used for Quest. But the fact of the matter is that the technology is actually here to start doing stuff. Not only create pilot programs, but create final programs. As you've seen from some of the videos we've already shown you, there's companies already using it. And we emphasize that in our research, the Metaverse Research Center that you have access to. You can go in there and look at a lot of these applications that are being done today, not suggesting this in the future. That's why we're pretty proactive with companies telling them that they really need to be seriously looking and investigating this now. Even if it might take another year or two to flush out, you need to be at the forefront of it, not being in a laggard position.
This is tremendously insightful, Tim. I'd like to make a comment on one thing Tim said. He's pointing out the importance from a software, from a hardware, from an applications perspective, and the tremendous opportunities that exist among some of the world's best companies and even emerging companies. One of the things that I will say in some wisdom over the years is I don't like when technology drives a new sales process or behavior, or drives marketing or customer service. Typically, I like to get the process in place and then look at how the technology could impact it. But I will make an observation, and that is this Metaverse technology, and Tim's educating me as much as you today, but this Metaverse technology really is a game changer. And it really does, it has to be looked at. You have to ask this question: what technology exists to address some of these issues, or how could I use Metaverse technology to take a step ahead of the competition or to get closer to the customer? So the technology component, which is, my people process technology kind of frame up, is only 20% of the overall effort, 40% being process, 50% being people, 30% being process, 20% being technology, even though that 20% is very, very important in the Metaverse technology. That's all I want to say. Okay, let's go on to step number 5. So you've got your vision, step number 1, you've got your burning business issues identified, step number 2, you've got your processes, how am I going to use the Metaverse technology in the sales process like we did for the machine on the factory floor. You've worked with people like Tim and other experts, and again, read the articles in our Metaverse Resource Center, and you've got an understanding of what technology opportunities. Now we're ready to start to kind of build a program, but we have to remember that 50% of people. And here I want to just share a couple of observations. You really have to have a robust organizational readiness program inside the department. Typically, Tim and I think that Metaverse technologies and trials and pilots and efforts start within a division. Typically, it's not at the enterprise level. But within that division, you want to make sure you have effective business process and technology training. You know, nobody woke up this morning saying, I really want to apply my Metaverse technology. You know, you woke up for hopefully yesterday a hug and a whatever from your partner for Valentine's Day and so forth. So you're not really going to just embrace technology quickly. It has to be trained and effectively. You also have to have very clear both internal and external communication. I say internal and external because it's going to impact, you know, sales, marketing, customer service people inside the company, but it's also going to impact the way your customer engages with you. So you have to have clear communication of what we're doing, when we're doing it, why we're doing it, how you're involved, and you know, you really got to get communication flowing very effectively within the organization. One of the things that we find increasingly important, and this builds off the gaming industry, is this the focus on robust rewards and incentives. And there's absolutely nothing wrong. To the contrary, we would strongly recommend that an effective Metaverse program on the people side at least includes these types of robust rewards and incentives. And as I've already alluded to, the Readiness program must include both internal people as well as external people, because both of those are going to participate in your Metaverse efforts. Tim, anything on step 5?
No, and I would just add, the only thing I would add is that the concept of rewards and incentives, it has a lot more to do with the value proposition. It makes their job easier, it makes them more effective, and it delivers better service or whatever to your customer. And those kind of incentives, especially in the sales process, means that you're going to be more successful as a salesperson or more successful in how you operate as a field service agent. And those are the things that I think drive the demand and need for integrating these technologies sooner, as well as the fact that you can apply great level of savings to the process.
Super. Thanks for that insight, Tim. Okay, step number 6. We've got the process done, the technology and the people. We've got the vision from step 1, we've got the burning business issue identified. We're going to pull it all together. I always look at it as a funnel that leverage your executive vision, steps 2 to 5, and now we're ready to pull it together into a Metaverse strategy. And that's going to explain 3 very important things. How are you going to integrate Metaverse technologies into your products and services? Which customer segments are you going to target to apply this technology to how they do business with you? And what's your timeline to help make this happen? And as I alluded to in the big red below, the Metaverse strategy is a part of your overall customer strategy. And typically there are 3 components to a customer strategy. You've got number 1, customer acquisition. You've got number 2, customer retention. And number 3, customer growth. So you want to make sure that you're aligning your Metaverse strategy with your company's customer strategy. So, you know, if the big focus on acquisition, you're not going to really want to push a Metaverse offering in retention or growth. So really just, I'm trying to make sure that you sync your Metaverse strategy, or one syncs the Metaverse strategy with the company strategy in terms of customer strategy. We do that, you know, in everything that we do with all of our customers, but it's just a very important component of an effective strategy. And remember, the strategy will describe to the executive team and even to the customers how the Metaverse technology will make it easier for customers to do business with you. That's very important, to help create positive experiences for the digital customers, and this is something they come to expect, and to drive, as Tim already alluded to, new customer sales and lower customer support. And I hope that has been driven home. Anything on the strategy, Tim, that you'd like to add?
No, I'll just say that that's exactly the way to think about it.
Good, thank you. Okay, step 7. Now we're really doing well here. We got the vision, the burning business issues have been identified. You've gone through your people plus technology review. You built the strategy based on all of the above. Now you got to kind of put it down on paper and make sure it makes sense. You got to develop what I consider to be a 3-year Metaverse roadmap. And one of the things that I think is very important, at least from our knowledge in the industry, there are 3 streams inside the roadmap. There's a people stream, a process stream, and a technology stream. And needless to say, I understand the technology impacts a process and the process needs to be learned by people. So you have all kinds of activities within one stream, but dependencies across streams. And that's what makes for an effective roadmap. And again, we write them for a living, so it's something we know very well, but you have to include all three streams. And what that then allows you to do is you project manage it, is you're not getting too far ahead with the technology without the proper training, or process without the proper training. You're not getting too far ahead on one piece of it without making sure the whole roadmap is moving forward. And one of the things that is very important in an effective roadmap is what we call monitoring activities. So you got to set up at the outset your approach to how you're going to monitor the activities. Again, a good PMO, project management officer, or project manager does that as a part of their overall job. But what we've found is that roadmap becomes a critical document. It's a livable document. It's distributable. You can talk it through, and you work together in your committee, your Metaverse committee, to make that happen. And I just mentioned in red that today we don't use any of the waterfall methodologies. They're largely out the window in terms of building roadmaps. We use agile methodology so that you can build chunks in 3 to 6 week pieces, and you bite off the elephant in pieces. So that's step number 7, develop a 3-year Metaverse roadmap, but making sure you have these different streams. Tim, anything on step number 7 you'd like to add?
No, I mentioned it earlier too, that the individual divisional approach, as opposed to a big Metaverse roadmap that's just enterprise. And again, in the develop a 3-year Metaverse, I do think it has to have a global company viewpoint, but it's got to also be developed in steps. And I think that this is important for them to understand.
Good. Final step, the business case, or in some cases, it's a business justification document. But again, this is not, this is costly. This is not buying a $500 PC. This is undertaking a program that's in the tens of thousands. In some cases, it may be hundreds of thousands. And extremes, it might be millions. But the key point, and Tim's already made the point, is you build the business case typically for a division. That's who typically buys into it. The VP of sales, the VP of marketing, the VP of customer service, the VP of field engineering. And so what you're looking for in the business case is you're going to build it based on the costs for all of the people, process, technology activities. You are going to generate a revenue forecast from the investment. And we just, because we're in the industry for so long, Tim and I, we have a pretty good understanding of how the J-stick looks when you, or the J-curve looks when you launch a new technology. You are going to predict a break-even date when revenues in and expenses out cross. So you've got a date, and that then begins to generate positive cash flow. And then you'll be using the ROI metrics to measure that. I typically like to do it on a quarterly basis through a 5-year period to make sure that you kind of hold people accountable, and it allows you to really go back to the document, say, this is what we promised, this is what we're delivering, or if you're not able to deliver it, why you're not able to deliver it, et cetera. But the roadmap together with the business case, and some companies are formal in a business case, and some companies are less formal. We call it a business justification. I still think that's a critical document to drive accountability inside the organization. And I kind of put in red, I think the Metaverse, since it will continue over the next years to define itself and get more nuanced and so forth, so too should your business case be comfortable in using what we call contingencies or contingency margins. So the key point is, you lock it in, you justify, you get your funding with the understanding that things can change over time, given the technology changes that are likely to happen over the next 3 to 5 years in the Metaverse technology. Tim, your feelings on step number 8?
No, and the one thing about that 10-year cycle is that the technologies will advance, but in theory, because of competition at the hardware and software level, the costs will actually come down. And that's important to remember, that while the initial phase might be more expensive, once you get it in place and you start down a path where you're adjusting both hardware and software over that 5-year period, and then for the long term, your ROI will, especially at the back end, come in even faster.
Yep, very good point, Tim. Thank you. Okay, let's summarize it and make some closing comments. there they are, folks, the 8 steps. We practice it all the time. We're happy to work with you, however it may be, but create the vision, identify the burning business issues, go back in and look at which processes would best benefit to address those burning business issues. How can you use technology to support the process? How do you make sure people are on board to drive that overall effort? Roll it up into a strategy, a roadmap, and your business case. And let me tell you, you're going to be successful. So what I want to do now is to go into a third and final poll and just kind of a sanity check. And this one deals with you as a company in terms of your people. The question on this one is, my company has the internal skills to create and implement our metaverse strategy so we can do business in the metaverse. Just like to get a sanity check on this one. Just give it a minute here. Okay, so that's good. That's good enough. We had it was earlier on was 100%, and then it was 50%. It's been an interesting poll. I'm going to close it here because I think there's many people on the call, but this was good enough. So let's share it. And as you can see, about 29%. Yeah, we got the people. About 29% said no. We really don't have the people. 43% don't know. So this is an activity for you to think about when you go back and talk to your teams or your subordinates or your bosses when you talk about hopefully this wonderful webinar that you attended. Okay, some closing comments. Let me close this and let's hide it and let's get back and close the webinar. Okay, some closing comments. Not going to be surprising, but there's a couple that we do want to share with you. The metaverse will have a significant business and personal impact. It'll make you a pioneer in the industry. It'll help your company separate itself from the competition. There are many really important business and personal reasons you want to be involved in the metaverse. And as Tim alluded to, it's already having a profound impact on sales, marketing, customer service applications typically found within the CRM bucket. And I would argue that now is the time to put your metaverse stakes in the ground. This happened, years ago with CRM, happened years ago with digital technology. People were saying, well, I think I'll wait, I'll see how others do it. What Tim alluded to, we have 100 use cases, more than 100 in the Metaverse Center, Resource Center. They're doing it, and they're really doing well. So I'm going to encourage you to encourage your teams to put the stakes in the ground now, etc. And then I think that you need to follow some sort of an approach. You like our methodology, great. You don't like our methodology, that's your choice. But provide your company with some structured approach to be more successful in your metaverse efforts. And needless to say, Tim and I do this for a living. We love to work with clients that are on this call and elsewhere if it's appropriate. So, we're open to talking with you. To learn more about the metaverse, we would encourage you to go to that Metaverse Center that we talked about multiple times. And in it, you can read, a couple of good articles that Tim and I have written. And they're all up to date. So this one, there's a game changer for sales and marketing, how field service can be impacted. Tim talked about his recent article on the principal investigator. All that comes out of the visit to the VR, AR, XR, or Metaverse Resource Center. And let me just close with a couple of observations. And by the way, we really encourage you to visit that center. So we actually do with the companies, we do those executive briefings. How to do business in the metaverse. What is it and how does it impact your business? Case studies that are relevant to your industry, and then an understanding of how to create a draft vision and some action items as to how to make that happen. If you're more advanced than that and your team is ready, we'll do a strategy development and implementation where we'll actually come in and begin to identify what is the right strategy for sales, marketing, or customer service. We'll also help create and implement the full metaverse pilot, where we are going to create it with your team and then implement it, week by week to drive success. For those that really just want to stay on top of the game, we do a metaverse advisory service. So that could be a phone call once a month or once a quarter. It depends. It could be a visit. There's different ways to do an advisory service, but it's just going to give you trends in the industry over the next 3 to 5 years and how they impact your particular industry. And for those that are doing metaverse, we will come in and look at what's called a health check or an assessment. So how effective is it? And we're on the people, process, technology. We give you a grade. How well are you doing in that particular area? If you would like to discuss more, my coordinates are here. Tim's coordinates are there. This webinar is being recorded It'll be in the Metaverse Resource Center tomorrow, the next day, something like that. We're more than happy to chat with you. And Tim, I'd like to give you the final word.
Yeah, as Barton mentioned, he and I have actually worked together for over 20 years. And he is the expert on the people process side, and I'm really the outsider that comes in and helps on the technology side. Between the two of us, I think we could actually help you as a company create not only your original Metaverse strategy, but even possibly help in some of the implementation going forward. But I'd like to thank you for joining us and appreciate the time.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day, and hopefully hear from you. Bye now.